What's up, guys and girls? It's Ghost Robo. Today is the day we're doing the full Uncharted 4 review, score, and more. I'll start it off with a spoiler-free review, and then we'll move into the spoiler section, discussing the entirety of the game, including the epilogue, where the series may go from here, and I'll give my final score right smack dab in the middle of the spoiler-free and the spoiler section. Want to make sure those of you who have not played or finished the game can still enjoy the video. So first off, we'll say, holy freaking crap. Absolutely incredible. Blew me away in every good way imaginable. And I will say that I kind of ate my own words, because last year when they played the demo at E3, I was a little bit underwhelmed. It didn't look all that new. It looked very, just something about it felt old. I don't know. The scenes they showed, maybe it was the fact that they showed a lot of the more canned scenes, the ones where you're pressing buttons at the right time, and it was done all perfectly. And the climbing they showed was very simplistic. They demoed an area, a little bit of the jungle, and then a little bit of a cave system, and then they showed sort of the car chase scene, which ends up being the most exciting scene in the game. So I was surprised they blew that. Anyhow, I was worried that there wasn't enough dynamism. I was worried there wasn't enough variety, and luckily they just came through with flying colors in all of those categories. And in fact, the climbing was fantastic. I think it was the best it's ever been, because they introduced multiple paths far more often than in 1, 2, or 3. There were opportunities for you to fail at climbing and reach a dead end, and then you have to go back. And I really like that more explorative nature of the climbing and sort of the movement sections. And then the combat was something else they focused on at E3, and I didn't get the full sense of it by watching, but by playing, let me tell you, this combat is probably the best third-person combat I've played. I feel like they reduced the sponginess of the enemies, and they introduced an element of both stealth and space that made those encounters so much more fun. So now, not only do you have an option to move all sneaky-like through the grass, through the reeds, and take guys out, or not take anyone out, but you also have massive spaces to deal with and interact with. That allowed them to introduce far more enemies, far more tactical options for you as you decide how you're going to tackle and take out the group of Shoreline foes or whoever you're fighting against. And I think it just really came together as super fantastic third-person combat. And for me, that is probably the most important thing that elevates this above the rest. Because in Uncharted 2 and 3, while I really liked both games, and I absolutely love 2, I felt like the combat was kind of the weak part. I felt like the story, the cutscenes, the characters, the sort of spectacle was what carried the game for me. And then the movement, the climbing, and the gunplay was something that just sort of was the icing on the top. And hey, you get to do this cool stuff while experiencing this awesome story in this movie-like game. Here, though, I feel like the actual gameplay takes center stage, which is crazy, because the story here is more grounded and more, I feel, has bigger impact than ever before. And the environments are crazier, more varied, bigger, and better than ever before. So they basically just upped the ante in every way possible. And I really appreciated that they went for a more grounded and slightly darker tone with the story. They introduced far more real-world problems and relationship issues, whereas I felt 1, 2, and 3 were more along the lines of an Indiana Jones, where the treasure was the focus, where the journey and the adventure of getting that treasure and whatever crazy creatures and things they found at the end was the focus. Here it was much more about the relationships between Nathan and Elena, and Nathan and Sam, and for me, that really worked wonderfully. And it's like, holy crap, how are these guys so good at writing and so good at dialogue, and nobody else can even come close? Because I was left at the end of Uncharted 4 feeling like, I don't know how I'm ever going to play another game again in this genre, because until Naughty Dog puts out their next one, nothing comes close. And there was an interesting article from Forbes magazine where they talked about, is Uncharted 4 the last great single-player game? Because so many games now are veering towards online, they're veering towards open world, they're veering toward, more of a persistent gameplay system where you're constantly getting new content and new raids or new missions or new whatever, and you don't have the artistry and the design mastery that is able to be placed inside of a linear single-player game. Now, Uncharted 4 is fantastic multiplayer, and that's something else we should touch on, is that side of it usually gets left off. It's as if that game doesn't even exist, that half of the game. Most people just talk about the single player, and as a single player, if that was all they had, $60, I'd pay $100. But the fact that they have this fantastic multiplayer with a suite of modes and customization and really smart unlocks and fun sidekicks, the sidekick system is really cool. The fact that you can call in these helper characters that will either lay down suppressing fire, revive you if need be, or snipe from a set point. That is just a really cool addition, and you get to see the game in 60 frames per second, which makes it even crazier looking than the single player, which runs at 30. Granted, the multiplayer is a much smaller scope, so they're able to up that frame rate, and the animations are reduced. But that is super fun, and it's a super great addition, and makes this a bountiful package rather than just a brilliant one. So it's bountiful and brilliant, and ultimately, I think this will end up being Game of the Year because it is just so soundly made and so well produced at every corner. The only negative I would have to say about the game is that I wish there was more puzzles. I really like the times, and we'll get into some of the specifics, where you have to solve things using your journal, using environmental clues, and whether they're motion-based puzzles like climbing and activating switches, or more cerebral puzzles like placing things in certain orders or flipping certain switches in a set pattern. I like them a lot, and I wish there were more of those. I think there were so many great set pieces in this game, and I wish that some of those included puzzles, or that they had devised additional rooms that were puzzle rooms to progress. Now, speaking of that variety, oh my god, no game has ever done the amount of beautiful levels that Uncharted 4 has done. I mean, this isn't really even a spoiler, but we're talking they've got African savanna, they've got rainforest, foresty jungle environments. They've got broken down, dilapidated cities, bustling big cities. They've got night skyline in a modern area. They've got night skyline in an old-fashioned castle. They've got you perusing through graveyards of Scotland. They've got you trapezing through, towers in pirate villages. It's absolutely crazy. Catacombs and caves and underwater and swimming through shallow water and snow and rain and storms and like everything you can imagine. They've got boats and they've got cars, and these aren't just canned scenes, QuickTime events. These are actually like explore the environment wherever you want to go, pretty much as far as the eye can see, in a boat or in a car, and that's just magical. I don't know how they were able to accomplish such beautiful graphics, such beautiful gameplay, and such big environments, and so many of them. This is what true game development looks like. When the time, the money, the talent is all there, you get this incredible amalgamation of all of these elements coming together and working together in perfect harmony, and beautiful scenes where you are, driving a vehicle to explore, and then you have to use some tool to progress through the environment, and then you end up in a combat encounter, and the combat is great because you could stealth your way through, and once that goes awry, then you can shoot your way through, and that is equally awesome and fun. And then you have great banter between the characters, optional banter where you go up and hit the triangle button and learn more, and like the characters here I felt were so good because Nathan Drake, he's always been lovable. Here he makes more choices that are like, oh, is he being kind of selfish? Is he being kind of a jerk? Is he, really just looking out for himself? How do you decide when it comes, pitting your family and other people you love between, against each other, and what's more important? What do you value most? And you got a lot of, he felt more multidimensional than ever before. And I like that Sam is more of a sort of the badass brother who doesn't really care as much, and he's way more selfish, and he's way more, doesn't really care what you think. And then you've got Sully, sort of the older patriarch of the group, and then Elena in there heavily, and more as a wife and a partner than a fellow explorer. And the villains were very humanized as well. They weren't like Lazarevich, who was basically a big bad brute. Rafe and Nadine are two characters who you never really know if they're like, is there going to be a bigger villain? Is there going to be an ultimate bad? But they're not. There isn't, because those are the two villains. And they play that role very naturally and true to life, as opposed to, some mega monster that you have to go up against and some hulking muscle man that is going to take you down. These guys are much more, greedy and ruthless and rude and obnoxious and self-serving and, arrogant and ignorant, and all of that kind of played into, I felt, better scenes. There was more variability. There was more unpredictability. You weren't really sure what was going to happen with those characters, and I thought that all of it was obviously acted and voiced beautifully. I think that team of Nolan North and Troy Baker fantastic. I thought they had great chemistry and did an exceptional job at really bringing those characters to life. You forget that they're not real people. They seem so real, and it's amazing to me that Naughty Dog can't do this. I don't know what's more amazing. Is it more amazing that Naughty Dog can time after time produce games like this that seem to one-up themselves, or is it more amazing that other studios can't? And I know that not every game is going to be, you know, this movie quality, story-driven linear experience, but why aren't more games trying to showcase the extreme power of the medium? You know, sure, there's power in playing an online shooter, and sure, there's power in having fun with your friends, but nothing quite reveals the intensity and passion and just quality of gaming like this does. I feel like this is the perfect example to show someone who thinks games are all about blowing people's heads off and swearing and wasting time, like, hey, this is absolutely a brilliant work of art, and it is fun, it is, you know, it is thoughtful, it is well written, it is beautiful. All of it comes together in a way that only the video game medium can do, and I think this is just that perfect game in that sense. And you know, at the end of the day, I didn't feel like it dragged on too long. I didn't feel like it dragged on not enough. I thought it was a great length. I did wish that the ending was a little bit more boisterous and big. It had a cool end scene, but I wish there was a little bit more there, and we'll talk about that in the spoiler section in a second here. But I didn't feel that the starting chapters were too slow. Some people said that they thought the beginning half of the game or the first third of the game was kind of a drag and it took too long to get into it. But I felt that that setup and that game was excellent. I really, really enjoyed it. I really liked more of the combat-free gameplay, because then once the combat came in, it felt like just an extra layer of awesomeness in this already great game. And you got to learn a lot about the history and the backstory of Nathan and his family that you don't get in any of the other games. And I feel like it set up so much of the story to be have more meaning and be more relatable because you knew a lot more. And they did some interesting time-skipping, time-hopping things where you got to play multiple versions of Drake and multiple points in his life and critical junctures, which I think even more allowed them to bring that variety in and just inject this game with so many awesome environments. And I don't even know how I pick my favorite. You know, usually in Uncharted, the most brilliant, amazing environment is the final city or the final treasure room. But here, I don't know that that's the case. I think they did such a good job along the way that there wasn't 1, 2, 3 amazing, you know, tentpole showpiece moments. There were 20, 25, 30, and there were levels halfway through the game that were just as impressive as the end. And there were levels in the beginning of the game that were super cool and fun to play, just like towards the end. It wasn't that it built, you know, from 0 to 100. It more went from like 90 to 100. And so you got a higher level and a higher quality of game all the way through. And I was happy that it was as long as it was, clocking in more around the 11, 12-hour range, because I really didn't want my time with those characters to end. And with that being said, we are going to bring an end to the spoiler-free section. So if you haven't played the game, or if you want to stay completely, you know, spoiler-safe, then this is where you would stop the video, because I am now going to tell you that I would score Uncharted a 10 out of 10. I don't have any issues with that, and we'll go on to spoilers and get more into the actual specifics, but 10 out of 10, I don't have any problem saying that score, and I very rarely would give anything that score, but I was so blown away. I think this is their best game they've ever made, and it hurts me to say that it's better than Last of Us, because I love Last of Us, but outside of any enemy design and, you know, the crafting system, I think this tops Last of Us. I think it builds on what they've done, and I think that Staley and Druckmann are a fantastic duo, and I hope that they tackle, you know, a brand new franchise next. As much as I'd love Last of Us 2, I want them to go in a bold new direction. Bring us a new franchise. Bring us new lovable characters. You know how much you love Drake or you love Joel and Ellie? Well, give us a third set that we can fall in love with and bring that game and take their time and do it beautifully. I was pissed off about the delays for Uncharted 4, but in the end, man, they really delivered. A showpiece game, one of the best games I've ever played. Definitely the best game on next-gen consoles thus far, and probably the best looking as well. So congrats and kudos to Naughty Dog. Congrats and kudos to Baker and Nolan and all the other people that worked on this game. It was absolutely brilliant. Okay, now we're going to get into the spoiler half of the review and talk more specifically about some of my favorite moments, least favorite moments, epilogue, characters, and where I think they may go from here. So geez, like I said, the variety, you know, when you were driving through that African you know, sort of plains and savannah, and then your car falls off the cliff. It's like, that's a moment that could define a game, and here it's just another one. Or that chase, which I think is probably the best chase in gaming, where you're going from the car with Sully, and it's not that, oh, you have open world driving, but you really can kind of weave around more, and you have to, you know, trail back on yourself, and then you get out of the car and you board other cars and you're dragging along behind them, and then you get on the motorcycle and then you have to escape out of the car, and it's just absolutely it's so good. That scene was absolutely fantastic, and probably the adrenaline pumping highlight for me of the game. But I really love what they did in the past. I love when you were able to just explore that old house, the old estate, with young Sam and young Drake, and see how they sort of formed their initial brotherly bond and how that relationship had strained and deteriorated over the years. It really gave so much extra oomph to when you saw Sam betray Nate later on in the game. And I thought that was an interesting story struggle as well, was how Nate wanted to stay true to Elena and be with her, but at the core, he could not abandon his brother, and so he thought his brother was in trouble and he would do anything to save him. And then once he realized that Sam made that up, knowing full well that Nathan would be there for him, it broke his heart. And yet, at the end of the day, that love was still important enough for him to go back. And I thought that it would have been cool if there was more exploration on the pirate ship, on Avery's ship. You know, it's building and building to Avery's treasure and Avery's ship, and I would have loved to have a little bit more time to play around in those environments, maybe see more of the treasure rooms, maybe have it, you know, oh, there's some caves with a little bit of treasure, and then finally you get the big gilded ship. But I did like the final sword fight. I thought that was a cool way to add a boss battle to Uncharted, as opposed to just giving you an enemy that takes 100 shots. You know, something I thought was a little divisive was how they decided to not include any supernatural elements here. You know, that was something that definitely, you know, made people kind of take sides in Uncharted 1, 2, and 3. Are you a fan of the twists and turns that they end up taking with blue people and you know, zombies and whatnot, or would you rather it stay more grounded and be more realistic? And here they gave you something that was outside of the fact that these guys have, you know, super strong fingers and can jump 40 feet in the air, a much more realistic movie-like culmination, right? There is no ghost pirates. There is no, you know, secret sand demons. There is no brought back from the dead people. It's just two dudes vying for treasure at the end of the day, and, you know, Rafe gets squashed. But I thought that they built that to that point very well. You know, when you first meet Rafe and he's working with them, and then you meet him again at the auction, and all throughout you kind of see more and more that Rafe really is a devilish guy, and even if he's not the hulking villain like we mentioned earlier, he ends up being quite crazy at the end of the game, and I liked seeing him kind of go full-on insane there. But for me, some of the best moments were just the gameplay sequences, the combat sequences. One would be when you're in Libertalia and you swim up to almost like an island of buildings, and there's tons of enemies around, and you can try to stealth, but you're going to have to end up shooting your way out, and just so many places to take cover and kind of slip down. I love feeling like I'm this, you know, super lithe and fast, almost rogue assassin guy running through the grass and popping up here for this shot and then going over here, because it feels like you're playing out this epic movie scene every level. I really love the pirate ship battle, not from a structural standpoint as much as just a visual standpoint. When you were on those pirate ships towards the end and we're trying to reach Sam and you got to fight like up high and swing down, I thought the rope was a fantastic addition. And I loved swinging around. And sure, there's a whole lot of like logistics that don't make sense with that rope, but it really added a lot and enhanced the gameplay in the same way that, say, a crafting system would have been a nice addition. Maybe that didn't fit here, but the rope, as simple of a device and tool as it was, it really added a lot and expanded the gameplay and expanded your exploration in ways that we didn't see quite before. I thought the moment where Drake gets stranded on the island, how they bring you back to Chapter 1, around Chapter, whatever it was, 17, I thought that was really great. And you see how much he's struggling, and he's walking slow, and he can't even climb, and he's weak, but then he finds the strength after a good night's rest to go find his brother. And all in all, just all of those explorative moments in those gargantuan environments were so cool, because it allowed them to make it really a theme park attraction at every turn, not just at the final moment in the beginning of the game like the train sequences in Uncharted 2 or the plane sequence in Uncharted 3, but I felt like far more frequently you were getting these glorious moments of just insane feats of leaping and falling and climbing, and then, you know, you're climbing up the clock tower, and you solve that puzzle, and then you get to the outside, and you're like, holy crap, look at this amazing vista. So many gorgeous skyboxes and vistas, and, you know, thank God they have a photography mode in there, and people have been using the heck out of that over on NeoGAF, and rightfully so. You can create amazing scenes from the artistry and the art of this game. It's got to be the prettiest game ever, and maybe it doesn't have the most realistic graphics ever. There's probably some Unreal Engine 4 game or demo or something that will push that limit, but from an overall standpoint, like, I love the way this looked, and I really love the vehicle sequences. The boat one I thought was really fantastic. That reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean so much. This duo out here trying to find treasure, and I think it really immerse you into the game. Those two sequences in particular, the boat one around the islands and then the car one in the African savannah, you know, now you feel like you're a part of this world because you're not just following the path, but you are creating your own path. And sure, there's a wide funnel that's still getting you to the same point, but I felt like, A, there was more opportunity to find, you know, journal entries or treasure that some people may not find, structures that just look cool, high points that you could see very far off in the distance. But also it makes you feel like you are the one guiding this game, and you are the one in charge, and it gives you more time to spend with the characters in less of a forced, you know, point A to B fashion. So you get more time to talk to them, experience them, feel like you're working together with them to solve this. And I really liked, you know, how the treasure wasn't ultimately the focus, even though I do wish there was a little bit more of a bang towards the end. Libertalia was a very beautiful place, and you know, Henry Avery's treasure ended up not being important, and maybe that speaks more to the themes of this game, that ultimately it was the journey of these games that the brothers were addicted to. You notice how Nate never recovers anything from these adventures. Maybe a coin here, a coin there, but he doesn't really bring anything back except a memento to remember it by, and it's because the adventure of it, the journey of it, is the fun part, not the ending. And this game emphasized that more than any of the others before it, that, okay, we don't even care about this treasure. The ship is blowing up and burning down, and I just got to get out of here alive. And I thought the moments in Nate's house were some of the best. Man, I love that, where you just got to see how Drake lived a daily, you know, routine with his wife, and I thought that was fantastic. Games that are able to make the mundane marvelous are just incredible to me, and I think that is a true testament to how well that game is made, that even boring stuff can be super fun. They've got you so invested in the world, in the characters, in the gameplay, in the visual aspect of how beautiful it looks, how much detail. Dang, there's posters everywhere. There's little nods to this and that, and the stores are all filled, and there's nothing procedural. It's all beautiful, and yeah, sure, sometimes it's trees and mountains, but those mountains are special. We can call them Sabertooth Mountain because it looks like a unique peak. It's not just, oh, a mountain range off in the background that they, you know, found somewhere. It's really handcrafted and really marvelous and magnificent. Obviously, the Crash Bandicoot moment was freaking fantastic and so good, and possibly even better the second time around because it pulls out to reveal that epic epilogue with his daughter, and we don't have to say a whole lot about that sequence, but it was so good, and it, again, just shows how you're so interested in Cassie, even though you know nothing about her, because of how much they've made you interested in Elena and Drake and Sam and Sully, that now we care so much about Cassie, even though we barely know her. Plus, they do a great job of world building. You know, you learn a lot about Cassie and her relationship with her parents just through the house, and through the different things you see in the house, and through the notes on the fridge, and the letters left and sent by Sully. And you know, I thought the letters and stuff were very interesting. Typically, I don't take the time to read lore, but here it really factored in. And some of them, you know, did get long-winded about, oh, this battle and blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, they were really interesting. And then having that moment where Drake and Elena have to tell Cassie about their lives as explorers, it makes you hopeful and excited that maybe Uncharted 5 will, you know, catalog Cassie's journeys, and Grandpa Drake will have to save her, or maybe just come along for the adventure, or she'll have to save him. Either way, I think they definitely leave it open to more Uncharted. You know, they can say this is the last Nathan Drake game, the Thief's End, the end of his adventures, and sure, that's probably very true. But I can see Cassie taking the center role of that. You can look at it one of two ways. Either they introduce the epilogue in Cassie to bring closure to the entire franchise. Nate now has a family, and he's doing a little bit of his stuff still. You know, Elena has her show in her magazines, articles, but he's got a family, and so they ride off into the distance happily ever after. Or as a bridge to another possible trilogy with his kids or whatnot. And there's single-player DLC to look forward to, and we'll speculate on that. I'm probably going to make a whole video about the single-player DLC in Uncharted 5, just talking about some of my theories and some that I've read. So if you guys have any, you can let me know in the comments below, and we'll take those into the next video. But, you know, I could talk about this game for hours. There's so much it does so well. I really love the puzzle underneath the clock tower where you went down and had to orient those different pirate lord symbols in the correct ways. I wish there was more of that. Again, that's my only, like, little quip is I wish there was more, or little gripe, I guess. I wish there was more of those moments. More puzzles, because I think that's one of the cool parts about Uncharted is that it does puzzles really well. But, you know, it's not like it destroyed the game. I just wish that it, you know, did a little bit more of that. I think it would have enhanced the experience even more for me. Not that it's not good without it. Anyhow, Uncharted 4 is freaking fantastic, and it definitely is in my top 5 of all time, and that was an instant decision. I didn't have to waver on that. I think it is, again, just the culmination of not only the games, but also of Naughty Dog learning this medium and advancing and growing and leveling up as designers, you know, to then bring us this sort of ultimate game that capitalizes on all of their strengths and wraps up many of their weaknesses and brings us this bold, beautiful, bountiful package that hopefully, you know, stays with us forever, that we don't ever forget about. And when you compare this and The Last of Us, obviously they're different games, but I felt they were much more similar tonally and overall than I expected, which is a good thing because that was something strong about The Last of Us. And the banter between the characters, you know, that has improved as the games go on, and I think it was the best here. Joel and Ellie will forever be a dynamic duo, but Sam and Drake aren't a bad one themselves. And I like that you got to play with multiple partners, whether it was Sully or Drake or Sam, Drake, or Elena, even Rafe early on. You got to play as Sam, you got to play as young Nathan, college Nathan, normal Nathan, Cassie. I mean, there's a huge cast of playable characters, and Last of Us surprises you with the Ellie moment in one of the later levels, and they do a lot of that here. So it's great to see Naughty Dog embracing really a lot of things that most developers fail at doing or aren't skilled enough to do, and here they kind of do all of them, and they all work, and that's just magical. It makes me want to meet those guys, know those guys, make games of my own. I think no other game that I've played in recent memories made me want to make games more than Uncharted 4. Something about just how special it is, how much I enjoyed it is like, man, I want to do that for somebody else. I want to create something that has some kid making a YouTube video reviewing my game in the way that I am currently Uncharted 4. So it goes down as one of the best of all time. Definitely the best next-gen title that we have seen thus far. Hopefully not the best of this generation. I'd love for stuff to top it. You always want stuff to get better and better. And I think it's a special ode to the single-player, linear, story-driven games that we're getting fewer and fewer of because everyone's obsessed with online and DLC and multiplayer and persistence and this and that and blah, 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 friends. But at the end of the day, like, these are the best games, and these are the best-reviewed games, and these are the most memorable games, and these are the games that leave the deepest mark on not only us but the industry as well. From a quality and design standpoint. Maybe not in sales, maybe not in, you know, mass media coverage, but please don't ever forget about these kinds of games. Please show it with your wallets that these games are important and that we want more of them, and, you know, that this is worth playing too. We don't want to live in a world where everything ends up being, you know, massive open world with massive multiplayer and, you know, really fails and falters on the character story. Just specialness that Uncharted 4 has. Again, absolutely incredible game. I give it a 10 out of 10. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, what you think. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you had a fantastic time with my series and a fantastic time with this video. Big thanks to everybody that supported and watched along with me. I tried to pump that thing out as fast as I could, and it was for me as much as you guys because I couldn't put it down. I wanted to see what was going to happen next. I wanted to play new levels, and I was so just thrilled with every new environment and every new just level that they'd made was so fun. It was so cool to go trapezing around the globe and have there be just awesome level after awesome level, awesome moment after awesome moment, and have the story really hit home. So, fantastic game, and hopefully you found this to be a fantastic review. Until next time, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I will see you guys on another video. Like I said, I will do one on Uncharted 5 and the single-player DLC, because we are getting big single-player DLC, sort of like The Last of Us got left behind, which will be very fun and cool, and who will be featured in that. is a mystery. But let me know if you have any theories on that in the comments down below. I'll read through them and pick some to read in that next video. Until next time, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Drink some hot chocolate. Uncharted 4. There ain't quite many like it. But I'm glad that we got to do this one together. So until next time, thanks again. And we will see you all later.